live, you say
We are now, yes. So we have Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube all watching us right now. So hello everyone online and in the store. Thank you so much for sticking with us. We just saw the film Ori, and now we're about to have a discussion on the Dialectic is in the Sea, which is, a collection of work by Beatrice Nascimento. And actually, before we get to the book, I'm wondering if Bethania would mind saying a few words about the film. But let me introduce who you are first, like people might not know who you are. So, Betania N.F. Gomez is the daughter of Beatrice Nascimento. That's the one you saw in the film, and who was also narrating the film. She is a former principal dancer with the Dance Theater of Harlem and is a dance teacher and choreographer at African American dance institutions. She's the founder of the Beatrice Nascimento Foundation, which promotes Afro-Brazilian arts and education. Archie Davies is lecturer in geography and fellow of the Institute of Humanities and Social Sciences at Queen Mary University of London.
Archie Davies did the book with me.
Okay, I was like, why you the Very confused. Okay, he's not here, but I will give him credit as well since we're going to be discussing the Archie Davies is lecturer in geography and fellow of the Institute of Humanities and Social Sciences at Queen Mary University of London. His books include A World Without Hunger, Josue de Castro, and the History of Geography. And in conversation with Britannia tonight, for this evening, we have Darius Ichi. He's a filmmaker and music artist. He's a 2014 Howard alumni from the south side of Chicago, but based in New York. Fear to Sell, Ichi's thesis film, was selected for 2 film festivals, Media Film Festival and the Bad Theater Festival, where his film won an award in 2015. Currently working on his new project for 2024, Ichi continues to work on the script and music score. Thank you both for being here. But yes, if you can speak on Ori a bit before we get into the book, that'd be great.
So, Ori is this film, I just watched that, my mother worked on, is the narrator and the writer, the writing, most of the writing of the film was my mother's poetry and research and thoughts, actually, that it was back then. It started in 1978, I believe. The filming of Ori started in 1978, and it ended, I think, in 1988. It was a 10-year filming project, not just my mother, of course. Raquel Gerber is the director, and it was a huge, production as a documentary that at that time, as you can tell, films were much longer to be done. Productions like this were much longer to be done, especially a production based on history and based on a historian and her journey as a researcher, as a historian, and especially as an activist of the Black movement, civil rights in Brazil. And at the beginning of the film, you see my mother in 1978, pretty much, and then you see her maturing through the film. Like by the end of the film, she's 10 years older, and you can see her thoughts going from a student still in college. Because I think she did her master's, her bachelor's, and then after bachelor's, her master's. That's when they start filming her, because she had graduated already. But it's the very beginning of her journey as an activist, actually, that moment. And there was a lot of traveling happening, not just in Brazil. There was some traveling to to the continent, to West Africa. One of the films that you see, she actually, through that time, she had gone to some African countries, including Senegal, Angola, and passing through Cape Verde. Actually, I am half Cape Verdean as well. My father is Cape Verdean, so I am half Brazilian, half Cape Verdean, and I'm very connected with both sides of myself. It's different a little bit to be West African than to be an Afro-Brazilian, a black person born in America, South America. So I can kind of have both sides, and in this film, my mom shows very much of that concept of being in the African diaspora. The music, I cannot not talk about the music, how beautiful it is, and most of the music is my mother's musical taste and vision. She used to play the acoustic guitar as well. She was she was an amazing human being, amazing woman. She could play, she could sing, she could compose, she could write, she could do a lot of things. But she could not dance ballet, so that's why I chose to become ballerina, because I was like, let me see something that she didn't do, so I cannot be compared to her for the rest of my life. It's no joke to be the daughter of such a woman, you know. I have, aunties who went through the same path. I call aunties, who came to Brazil and visit my mom, came to our house. Auntie Davis, Angela, Leia Gonzalez, some African American activists, Afro-Caribbean activists. So I grew up in the household with visitors coming from everywhere, speaking English. When the English word would come up, I would run and be like, oh, and I watch them getting their hair done, getting makeup, and I was just like, oh, wow. And I'm glad she made Odi, because Odi brings that whole experience of being a woman of the diaspora, and also researching so deeply into our history, not just our history geographically and politically, but also our connection, our spiritual cosmic connection that I believe we must embrace, especially nowadays.
I just want to thank everyone for coming. Michaela, thank you. Professor Garima. I came here, I want to say in October, and I asked Professor Garima, I said, I have a friend, her mom was a political activist in Brazil. If I can just get the screening here at Howard, I'm an alumni, so I wanted to share because it's an important aspect of Black American culture to be connected with the diaspora, with people who are from Brazil, people from the Caribbean, people from the continent, Africa. So it's, us, a lot of African Americans don't learn about how a lot of the majority of the Black people during the slave trade went to Brazil as opposed to the United States. So just researching your mom's story, and actually, I'm gonna pronounce this wrong, the Quilombos, but the Maroon communities, like what we had here in Americas, where people are, leaving their oppressor, trying to create these communities where, hey, we can do it on our own. And I want to say that from what I read in the book, is that your mom was one of the ones who started the research on the Quilombos. On the Quilombos. So that was fascinating to me, because has anybody else done any more research since your mom? Because she was one of the first ones to do it. And also just mentioning Beatrice Nascimento played a fundamental role in forming the academic, forming the academic Black movement in Brazil in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. So definitely, it was something that I wanted to bring to the Howard community, and I appreciate you guys for hosting us. Sorry, I guess. I was going to open the floor for questions if you had it, more so for Latanya, because she's familiar with her mom's work more than I am, but she has more emphasis on the film and any other questions that she might have on her work, because she had a lot of work that was unfinished before she.
Yeah, so the film is something that, she did with throughout my childhood. But the book that we brought here, and Matthew, we were talking about bringing the film first, and then the book came out this last November. It has been, okay, my journey with my mother after her passing has started practically 10 years ago. So, as Michaela said earlier, my story, Tony's story, is that I became a ballet dancer and I joined the Dance Theater of Harlem as a scholarship student for the pre-professional program. And I was mentored by Mr. Mitchell, Arthur Mitchell, who was the first African-American ballet dancer to become a principal dancer with a major dance company in America. And Mr. Mitchell was like my second father. Through my career, at some point in my career, I got the news. I was here in the US. The Dance Theater of Harlem company used to travel much more than today. We used to travel all over the world. I've traveled 26 countries at least. Lost count. But in one of these trips, 1995, I got the news that my mother was assassinated. So once I get the news that my mother is assassinated, I go back to Brazil and I have to do all this spiritual work to actually not go with her, to stay here on earth, because when you get the news that overnight your mother is assassinated, it's no joke. So, and I was 20, so I was very young to understand that situation. So, I go back to Brazil, and also I had to sign some papers. So I donated my mother's work, estate, let's say, not the estate belongs to me, her work, to the National Archives in Brazil. She had worked in the National Archives, and then in that moment that it's still like a fog to me. I signed papers and I donated the whole thing, everything that she wrote, every little piece of paper to the National Archives. And that was actually from the short spiritual journey that I had there right after her passing, that told me to, the Orishas, my ancestors, told me to donate. So everything is very connected to me, to my ancestors and the Orishas. I'm a Candomblé person, and I see here these beautiful bookstores, images of them. So I got the call, I got the message, and I did what I had to do, and I donated, and the years went by. I came back to the US 10 days later, actually, and went on with my career, became a principal dancer with the company, traveled the world, it was great, but at some point I became a parent. My career was done, because that was another dream that I had to become a mom. And then that's when I met my mother's biographer, and that's one of the first people, Alex Hatz. is one of the first people in Brazil, one of the first Afro-Brazilians who becomes a professor and starts studying my mother. And Alex is like this person that brings Beatriz back into a book, first book, Eu Sou Atlântica, I am Atlantic, and that's what she says in the beginning of the film. And then Alex started calling me into the universities where he was giving lectures about my mom. And then I told him, I have a dream of making a poetry book about my mother, because through poetry, as you can tell in the film, she's talking about poetry. Through poetry, her poetry, I could connect to her better, because I'm an artist. I'm not an intellect. I mean, I think people call me an intellectual now. I'm not an academic. And I say that with a lot of pride. I am not an academic. I am an artist. I'm a ballerina. And also, as an artist and as a woman, as a black woman, and a ballerina, because the ballet world is very racist, I consider myself an activist since the age of 9. Because many times I was the only one in the room, and I had to stand up for myself. Joining the District of Harlem gave me the experience of leaving the African diaspora, like, daily. I consider the District of Harlem another Quilombo, for example. I think Howard is a Quilombo. I think this area is a Quilombo area. And I learned all of this with my mom, with my mind, that's all we call mom. And so through this journey of making her poetry book the first work that I did on her, I get to meet my mother again, and I get to connect with her again without pain, but with joy and love and spirituality. But everything is written there. So after doing the first book, that is the poetry book that I still wanted to translate, I meet Kristen A. Smith, who works in the book with me. She's supposed to be here with us today, but she's from here, she's from DC, but she fractured her rib, so she couldn't make it. And she's in Texas still. So hopefully we can come back with Kristen one day. So I meet Kristen, and Kristen's like, come on, Bettina, let's go, let's do, let's go to Chicago and go to Latin American Studies Association. And I was just like, but I don't know how to speak in public. I just dance in public. I communicate like this, But she was like, no, come on, let's go. So Kristen and Alex are the ones who encouraged me to speak of my mom. And through years, like now I'm sitting and smiling, but many times, I think Matthew knows, for the past 5 years, it's been a journey of talking about her, not breaking down and crying, breaking down and like having like, like I can navigate, I can flow through. And this book has been an amazing journey for me, because this book helped me to put this love and this vision out there to bring my mother to the US, because that was my dream when I started dancing with the company, was to become a soloist one day and bring my mother with me to the US. But the dream was cut short in 1995. But a dream never dies, so I made it through with this book. So this book is a work of 5 years with Kristen A. Smith and Archie Davis, and it's part of a dream coming true. It's in a different way, but that's how I brought her to the English-speaking world and to the brothers and sisters who speaks English, who've been colonized by the Brits.
Right. You have, but you have the British, you have the Portuguese, you have the Dutch, you have the French. So all of these countries colonizing Black people. Can you speak about your mom's discussion about the Portuguese as opposed to me being an American and
Yeah.
English.
Yeah, what I learned through this book and through this whole journey and being arriving in America, arriving in America, in the US as a teenager, and having my adulthood shaped in Harlem, it makes me realize that with this book and the little things that we can do, we should read the way that we can break the colonization and whatever the colonizer put upon us is exactly to do. Translate ourselves, reach out, please take this book, read my Bible, find out about what happened in Brazil, what happened in Jamaica, what happened in Cuba, what happened in Haiti. I mean, in one of her writings, and I believe it is there, I believe it's in the book, because I made sure it was in the book, is when she comes and when she says that when things were happening in Haiti, it was happening in Jamaica, it was happening in Brazil. So everything we've been connected for a long, we've been connected. But they try to break us, they try to separate us through the boat stops, and the language and religion. And I think this is the moment to really not erase, like let's forgive and forget. I'm not saying that, but erase the bad stuff. And in the moment that person tells me sometimes, you should tell me sometimes, oh, I don't understand what you're saying. An African American person would tell me that. Oh, you're not black, you're Latina. I'll get really mad. Like, I'll get really mad today if somebody says, oh, you're not black, you're Latina. But they are black. And I'm like, I'm black too. Preto. When you see, preto means black in Portuguese. And if you see my birth certificate, it says preto. Black, that's it, boom. This kid gotta go. My cousins were mixed, pardo, still Afro-Brazilian though, they consider themselves negros. But to come to America and in 1992 and hear somebody saying, you're not black, you're Latino, I'm like, huh? And that's what the colonizer wants, us to be separated. Or you to look at me and say, you're Brazilian, just, I don't understand what you're saying, move on. No, we gotta talk. Because those two brothers were separated. One went to Bahia and the other one went to North Carolina. Let's talk about that. And I think 2024, my mother talks about 2030. It's time to get together. It's time to talk. It's time to research in ourselves. That's Kirombo today. That's being marooned today. It's to research in ourselves and unite and throw all that crap that was put upon us away.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? I know you guys are itching. Yes.
Go ahead. Yeah. Just really quickly, the film is beautiful. It was my first time seeing it. And I really want to figure out how I can see it again.
It's a,
huh?
oh, I got you.
Okay. But the question is about the book, and would you be able to talk about any challenges that you had in translating this from the original language to English?
The challenges were to understand and to get deep into her tones, her undertones. Like at some moments, the two other people in my team, Kristen and Archie. Archie is British, and Kristen is African American. They'll be like, "What does she means?" And I'll be reading over and over and over. Sometimes I'll be so drained. And I am thankful for the pandemic because I was during the quarantine. And I was just like, okay, she's being sarcastic over here. Now here she's being emotional. Here she's angry. Here she's looking forward. You know, that I understand that it's that, and also get in touch with myself as a daughter, as a kid that was raised by her. That was a challenge for me. And sometimes those moments will be draining, those moments will be emotional, you know, to read over and over and understand. Like when she writes about Angola,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, oh, I remember her coming back from Angola, then going to the moment that she come back from West Africa, from Africa, right? Because Angola is not West Africa. From Africa, from Angola, and having that crazy stop. She stopped in Congo for a minute, and then coming back home a little bit disturbed from the trip, and I was like, how old was I? Like I was like 8, and I had to deal with my mom like trying to like get back into the rhythm of being a mom, and still have all of that experience in her head. So I had to like when I read about Angola, you know, I get like, you know, I don't like Angola. And then I had to deal with my issues or my anger or whatever happened, you know, like I don't like Angola. I don't want to go there. This is hard.
Yeah.
You know, I think African diaspora, to be a person from the African diaspora, you have to understand the best thing is to like really go into ourselves and understand ourselves, that we don't have to love the continent so much. Because I think a lot of us, Afro-Brazilians and African Americans and Afro-Caribbeans, we have like this, Africa is our motherland. We're gonna go there, everybody's gonna embrace us. When you get to that area especially, it can be very xenophobic, and she talks about that. You know, so to translate those things, not just translate the words, that was the challenge to me, and to deal with her feelings, to deal with her pain, because there was growing pains, there was a lot of growing pains. That was the challenge for me.
I appreciate that. What was your question, sorry?
Oh, yeah. When you talk about giving your mom's work to the National Archive, right? It's just like when she's talking about what she did with her research in Angola. And she let the Angolan government have it. I mean, the people in Angola have it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like it kind of mirrors itself, you know?
Yeah.
And then even further back, when your mother's talking about her grandmother, your great-grandmother.
Yes.
And she was so hurt that they literally threw the chest with the book into the sea.
Yeah.
So, but it wasn't a waste. It wasn't a waste. It was like returning to something that's perennial.
Yes.
So it's all encompassing. So I would ask if this is your version of like throwing your mother's stuff into the sea.
Yes.
Yes, pretty much. That's why we choose the title. What is the dialectic?
Yeah.
Is in the sea. You know, the whole connection with the sea, the whole connection with the Atlantic. That is definitely what it is. The whole connection with grandma. We call grandma Madalena. That was her name. The search for her to me, like trying to understand, like I grew up hearing that I had this grandmother who became a widow at 21, and she already had 3 kids, one of them my grandfather, and she shaved her head as soon as she became a widow, and I was just like, why did she shave her head? I never had the answer. Why did she shave her head? I keep asking, like 2020, why did she shave her head? I'm asking all the cousins, why? What is the actual how do you make that? No, not the reason, the action, the tradition, let's say, that she comes from, that she shaves her head because she's a widow.
Like the
the tradition or why she's not thinking about getting married again. Totally different from, you know, my great grandmother in Cape Verde. She married again. Real quick. Oh, but my great grandmother in Brazil, that was it for her. And I want to know where that comes from because it always comes from a place that we come from, you know. So, and then the story about the book, when she finds it, where is the book? And my grandmother goes, we just throw in the sea. And then throughout the book, I was like, this is the title. This is the title because yes, this book is the way to bring it back, that book. And that search, my mother's search her whole life was to bring back that book, but with more and more and more tools for us to emancipate ourselves from, like what she says in the film as well.
Any more questions? Okay, a couple more. Only because I saw your hand first.
Your mother talks about leaving her parents, move them to the city to grow up, but she's always thinking about their first home. Do you remember anything, recollection she had about the first home and why it was so dear to her?
But the first home is not just her first home, it's my first home too. Like she said, and I live and still live that my grandparents, when they moved from the Northeast down to Rio, they brought everything. They brought everything. I believe my grandmother, she probably picked up like a root of some plant and she put it in the bag and take it. As that was the kind of woman she was, you know. They brought everything. So when I was in my grandparents' household, and we used to be sent there for 3 months out of the year. I learned so much with my grandma. So I felt like I was in Sergipe when I was with my grandma. I was in Sergipe when my grandpa used to put the music on. The first movements of dance for me is my grandfather dancing Baião. I don't think you know. You see how diverse we are. Like you think about Brazil, you think Bahia, Carnival, Samba. No, we have all the kinds of music that comes from African ancestors. My grandfather and my family played the Baião a lot. You can hear a lot of that music up north, where it's Bahia, Sergipe, the state that our family comes from. So I remember my grandfather dancing. That's the person that danced first in front of me. It was not my grandmother, my grandfather dancing Baião. It's a dance that you use a lot of feet work. It's a lot of it's not the hips so much. If we go down south, and if you take me, some of you take me down south, I may find the same type of dance and rhythm again. So that place is so dear to us. In her poetry, she explains everything. But the greatest thing, the greatest gift from my grandparents, from my great-grandparents and my grandparents was that once the family moved to the city, to the big city, to Rio, they brought everything. They didn't leave anything behind. To the point that even when I used to go from here back home for Christmas, let's say, my accent would change when I get home. I would talk like a Northeastern. And somebody would be like, what, they kind of didn't know you had a Northeastern accent. I was like, because at home, we say Oxente, we say other words that is not out there in the city.
Thank you for that. Yes.
I have actually several questions, but I'm gonna start with this one. You said that it was Davies who originally wrote was it Davies who originally wrote your mother's?
No, Kristen.
Christian was the first?
Or Alex Ross.
No, the first person that writes about my mother, that makes a biography about her biographer is Alex Hatz. He is an Afro-Brazilian professor a writer and poet, a poet from also the Northeast. Kristen A. Smith is an African American professor and her studies on Latin America, and that's where when she goes to Brazil, I wish she was here, she could tell her story. She goes to Bahia, she goes to research on Afro-Brazilian activists and writers, and she was like, where are the girls? Where are the women? And then she finds my mother and Lelia, but she's like amazed by my mom. And then I meet Kristen through Alex.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
So did you, some of the people who visited your home, do you remember specifically any particular people, like was she in contact with Walter Rodney? Or I saw that that someone wrote about him in the book. Was there particular academics that she talked about to you, or was there something that she stressed to you about the world that you needed to understand about the concept of Blackness worldwide, and where most of the racism or most of the colorism of the world was coming from? Did she stress that to you at
Yes,
all?
there was a lot of conversation. I always have been very curious. As a kid, I was very curious. The moment I started ballet, things got worse, let's say, because the questions were coming like, Mama, why did you put me in ballet? Why? Why am I in my room? Why I grew up listening, hearing all about the Black people. My house is full of people, Black people coming from all over the world, and you put me in classical dance where I'm the only Black kid in there. What's going on? I want to quit. That's my first thing. And then from that moment, she started bringing me to her daughter, her kid, information, people. And then when people used to come into the house, oh, this is my daughter, even I was running around as a kid, I wouldn't pay attention. But yeah, she did. And growing up, the conversation kept going about colorism, what was the differences between the colonization in America and the colonization in Brazil. Was the difference being colonized by a Brit and colonized by a Portuguese,
Yes.
who is not a white person.
Right.
Recently, I was with my Cape Verdean side in Boston, with my uncle Adriano, who's a historian as well, who just came to visit from Cabo Verde. And we were talking, I kept asking him about what's the situation, do we have quilombos in Cabo Verde as well? We do. I was there, Assomada, man, I love that place. And then I found out with my younger brother from my father's side, because I have siblings, that there is a maroon area in Cape Verde as well that goes up the hill. Everything goes up the hill. Did you notice that? So yes, she stressed a lot to me. I learned so much with her. And there is an interview of her that I wanted to translate that came out in 2021, her birthday 2021. And in the interview, she goes, oh, I'm gonna do a lab with my kid when I go home this holiday. I was like, oh my God, I was a guinea pig a couple of times. I think I was her guinea pig when she put me in classical dance. But then I was like, what's going on? And then she shows me Arthur Mitchell, and then she shows me the pictures of the beautiful ballerinas from the state of Harlem. And I was just like, I wanna be like them. And then, that, yeah, she was doing the work on me as well. It's just that, I just have a different path with dance. But the people that came into one of her friends, Carol Couto, she's a professor at NYU now. She used to come from here and bring me albums like vinyls. And that's the first time I heard, what's the name of that group? Bobby Brown was in that group.
New Edition.
New Edition! You know, I remember the cover of the new edition. I was like, oh my God, it was them, three guys one side, three guys on the other side, and then there was a girl sitting in the middle, and I was just like, oh, in America, the black girls get the cover of albums now in Brazil. We don't even exist in
Don't even
Brazil.
exist.
Yeah, I was like, oh, she's okay, she's cute. I was like 11. It's like, I'm cuter than her. I could be there over too. You know, but that's pretty much how Beatrice raised me, to believe in myself, to embrace my hair, to embrace my color, to embrace everything, my big teeth, everything, you know. My mother was not about stopping me from going to a black queen, let's say. And she used to call me my queen. And today I see like little girls being called queen and black women being called queen lately. And I was like, oh, that's so funny. She did that 40 years ago, you know what I mean? 40 something, almost 50. Black queen. So yeah, my mother was she really raised me to be doing what I'm doing right now.
Before, I guess, anyone else, I wanted to just carry along with that, with it being Women's History Month, and your mom being prolific in the Black Brazilian education movement during that time. Did she discuss any things about any disparities with being a Black woman?
Yeah, the conversation came up through my teens. Things started getting really funky in terms of protecting myself and, like I said before, like finding myself. Brazilian society can be even more racist and violent towards Black women. I mean, no wonder. You can see how she passed. You know, you can see the way she died, she wasn't protected. And she had said somebody was about to do something to her. Somebody said something. And people just didn't believe something was going to happen, and it happened. Let's say, a week later, it happened. So, the fact that I had to leave to the U.S. was in a way, I feel not protected. In the U.S. even, we are not. They deal with the law and protect yourself from the law, the police. She did, my teens, like mid-teens, like when I became 15, that's when the conversation started about protecting yourself, and be able to go navigate into places in certain way to just protect yourself is very violent. Still today, we have a way to go, a long way to go in Brazil too. And here too, we're not, unfortunately I have to say, we're the same boat. We need to get out of the same boat. We need to get out of that boat, you know. But she did a lot. And then, like I said, there is a moment of blanks with the violence because her death was violent, and then comes back like 10 years ago, I'll say, I'm back to embrace and to absorb and be able to do this, like breathing right, you know what I mean?
Thank you. Does anyone have any other questions? Yes, Michaela.
So you talk about how the film took about 10 years to make, and I imagine the book has expands even more time. What do you think was her most critical realization or change in mind that she had over that time period? Like how did her philosophies change or morph or elevate?
I think she comes to a realization when she comes and she starts talking about 2030. When she comes and she says that the wars are going to be ethnic from now on. Today, look what's happening. if you look at the places that are going through what they're going through right now, all brown people, I saw this video of people in Gaza and I was just like, they look like Machiavellian people, man. They just look really brown and you know, so it refers me to what she says. She said, or she says in the film, and look what's happening today, what's happening in Gaza and Congo. That's the realization she had. I wish, sometimes, I mean, I'm grateful to for everything she left, but I wonder what she'd be saying today at the age of 80, you know. But her realization was very much, I see that my mother prophetized. She became a prophet at some point because she went so deep. And it wasn't easy for her mentally. My family doesn't like to talk about, but I am going to talk about because we have to talk about mental health going through this whole thing. There's been 500, 600 years of mental health to be taken care of. You know what I mean? Those realizations will take her walk. And it will take me actually, and some other people to bring her back. So yeah, she did grow a lot and beyond. And she became, to me, she became a prophet. I talk about my mother, you wanna talk about Afrofuturism, but that's so futuristic. Her thought was so futuristic that if you watch Ori again, it's like I was like to watch again. I watch Ori, I don't know I watch like little pieces, but sometimes I had to like prepare myself to watch again, and my spine will go zzz, like that, like, you know, like 2019 when I did the event in City College. First time I heard her voice, my spine went zzz, I was like, whoo, man, is it good? Anyway, but yeah, she became to me, she became her thoughts. And we talk about her thoughts, they're black radical thought, the radical thought that goes further. And if we can go and think with her, maybe we can find all the answers. You know?
Anyone else?
Okay.
I appreciate it for you guys coming out, watching the film, the translation into English. You get to see just the correlation, like I said, between Black people across the diaspora, and it's not just going on here; it's going on everywhere. So definitely appreciate everyone. Again, thank you to Sankofa, thank you to Michaela, thank you for Professor Garima for allowing us to host this event here. And feel free, I guess, to ask Batanya any more questions if.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for asking. Thank you for the questions and everything. Hopefully you'll be back soon.
Are you signing?
Yes.